how can you vibe faster? How can you vibe faster? If you know me at all, that is not what you thought I was about to say. Because I usually say, how can you start smaller? The world has changed, and that's what it's going to be about today. When we talk about MVPs, it's a whole new world. Yesterday, I gave the Start Smaller talk, and I thought, you know what? I can't give this talk tomorrow because it's out of here. So I'm going to make a confession. First, let me tell you who I am. If you don't know who I am, I'm Doc John, the Entreprofessor. I have twice been a co-founder for an AI startup. Both of them are operating today. Both of them are venture capital funded. I spent over 20 years in the technology industry, and I teach entrepreneurship here at this university. And I'm going to make a confession today. I am going to say something that should probably be illegal. And some of you have known me for a long time. Here it is. Everything I taught you was wrong. Or at least it is today. So I hope you are paying attention, because if you are paying attention, you are ready for the future we just stepped into. All right, today I'm going to talk about vibe coding. And I'm going to tell you about, this is what I used to say when I said start smaller. 7 ways that you can create your MVP and start smaller. And what were they? Napkin sketch, slideware, landing pages, wireframes and workflows, no-code app builders. Almost there with that one, right? AI rendering and imaging and tangible modeling. But let's talk about vibe coding. The world has changed. So, what is it? This is where the term came from, Andrej Karpathy, February 2nd, 2025. So, barely a year ago, this term was invented. And what he said is, there's a new era of coding, I call it vibe coding. You forget the code even exists. So, there's going to be 2 potential responses to this idea of vibe coding. You might be sitting there thinking, I'm a coder. I don't need to vibe code. You might be saying, I'm not a coder. I don't know how to do any kind of coding. I'm not sure vibe coding's for me. What I hope happens in the next 23 minutes is that I convince you that vibe coding is not only a good idea, it's going to be necessary if you are going to be successful at creating MVPs that really have an impact, whichever camp you're in. So this was my first attempt at vibe coding. I used a platform called Lovable, and I created a game called Fruit Market Trader. If you squint, you can read my prompt. It was literally about 10 lines long, and it came up with a game that looks similar to others we've seen, right? Where you have some cash, there's some stuff to buy, there's fruit, there's different price points you can buy and sell every week. You go through 10 weeks, and you see if you can have more cash at the end than you did at the beginning. I did this with a 10 line prompt. And then what I did was I brought it into my class. This was a slide. I took it right out of the presentation. And I asked everybody to scan the code and try the game. And I walked around the room and I watched everyone playing it. And then after it was over, I said, why don't you tell me about what your experience was like? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did it work? Were there problems? I got all kinds of feedback. I probably got 2 pages of notes about what was good about it, what was bad about it, what was possible with it. That's called customer development. So in a matter of about 5 or 6 minutes, I came up with a prompt. It spun for a little bit. It had to do its thing. It took maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes to create the app. And then I put it in front of a group of 26 people. I got to observe them using it. And then we had a focus group. And I got to get all this input. So if I were going to move ahead with Fruit Trader, whatever I called it here, Fruit Market Trader, to make this an app in the real world, I would take all of that customer development, all of that good input. In a matter of about 20 minutes, I got observational data. I got individual data because I would ask questions as someone was using it. What'd you think about it? Or somebody say, this is a little hard. I can't figure this part out. So individual interviews. And then I got a focus group. And then after that, I sent everybody a little survey link, and they gave me some survey data. I got quantitative data. So in notably less than 1 hour, I came up with an idea. I created a minimum viable product. I got 4 different forms of customer development, and I had essentially a roadmap if I wanted to iterate this idea forward. So that's just a very, very simple first exercise in vibe coding. But I wasn't done. I wanted to keep trying vibe coding. So I did something. I'm going to reveal a secret right now. And fair warning, in revealing this secret, it comes the end of the era. But some of you know that when you open one of my syllabi for a new class, that somewhere in that syllabus is an Easter egg. And some of you are saying, what? So that Easter egg comes with a lot of extra credit points for those who find it. And it used to be right out in front, like send me this email and get 50 points. However, everyone listened when I said train an AI to help you figure out your coursework. Everybody started doing that. And of course, first thing it said is, did you know you get 50 points of extra credit? So I had to move the bar. So I had to hide the link. But I decided to vibe code a little bit to say, how could I evolve this a little bit further? Now, I would say, please continue to read the entire syllabus. There's lots of great information there. But if you've trained an AI assistant to help you with your courses the way I've suggested, you probably can get all that good information in a lot of different ways. But here's what happened. I said to Lovable, I don't want to just have a message in it. I want to have a link, and I want to have a crossword puzzle. So I'm like, okay, we're up in the game a little bit. You have to know some terminology from the kind of startup world. Fill out this crossword puzzle and send it in. So I said to Lovable, make me a crossword puzzle. I got this. And actually, this was like the third or fourth attempt. It was kind of a train wreck. The lines didn't cross. They didn't match. It didn't work. I went until the point that it was like, you've used all your credits. So I said, okay, let's shift over. I'm going to try Replit. Replit was better. It wasn't perfect, but I got something that generally resembled a crossword puzzle. The mechanics were generally what we expect. Okay, the lines across didn't match the lines down, but I was like, good enough. Somebody can come up with 18 out of 20 of these definitions. They get this lovely reaction right here. Submit the challenge, boom. You can have a challenge complete and instructions. So go to the Mario Dragon on 33rd Market, take a selfie, send me an email, and 50 points followed quickly. Anyway, so that was like my second vibe coding challenge. And what I realized is all vibe coding apps are not created equal. That isn't to say don't use Lovable. I think Lovable is great, but I think there's a time and place for each one of them. And so there's just some examples of what I did. So let me give you a framework for vibe coding, and this is the best that me and my AI assistant could come up with in terms of an acronym, which is visualize, interrogate, build, and expose. So visualize, this is when you visualize like a human. So in other words, start to think about what is it you want it to do. So when I did Fruit Market Trader, I had a vision in my head of what I wanted it to be. It was like a little widget that I had on my PC 25 years ago that, when you just needed a little mental break, you can sit there and do some trading. I'm like, okay, let's do that with Fruit. That sounds like fun. So I had a vision, an idea in my head, and I turned that into words. Interrogate the pain. So all of you are working on a challenge today. Essentially, you're looking for a pain point, and you're trying to come up with ideas for how you can address that pain point. And so if you were going to create an app as part of your solution, vibe coding would next go to interrogate. And if, most of you that have studied entrepreneurship even a little bit know, you want to do customer development, not just product development. You want to find out what can customers tell you that is going to inform the decisions you make and hopefully create something that will activate your money model. So that interrogating the pain. What is the pain? What is the pain point? Asking the 5 whys. What's the root of that pain? And how can we address either the pain point itself or some kind of root cause problem that makes it go away? One of the AI startups that I'm involved with, an ongoing debate between me and the founder was a dashboarding app with data. And I kept saying, do we really need the dashboard? And this was like a leap that he was not able to make for a while. But I remember the day when he said to me, I think people just want the answer. Could we just text it to them? And I was like, I don't know, that sounds suspiciously like maybe we don't need the dashboard, right? So we got to the root of the problem was not having a dashboard that gave you information to help you. It was, what should I do? And so it changed the nature of it. So interrogating, getting to the root of that pain and what's behind the pain. I have a simple secret for discovering the real pain point you're addressing. If you're talking to a customer, I am pretty certain I have found the real pain when I start to see their eyes start to water up a little bit. Because I struck a nerve somewhere that was beyond just like, this thing is annoying. It's affecting my life. It's affecting my relationships. It's affecting my ability to be who I can be. And they start tearing up. And it's like, there it is. There's the pain point. I interrogated far enough till I saw it. All right, now build. Keep in mind, in this vibe framework, build's number 3, not number 1, not number 2. It's number 3. But build the smallest outcome. And so I will come back to, it's not over. I'm exonerated. How can you start smaller? The question is still correct, but now you have different tools and different ways that you can start smaller using vibe coding. So coming to that smallest outcome, what is the smallest, simplest thing you can do? You know, with Fruit Market Trader, I literally had 10 lines of just writing to say what I wanted it to be, and it came out pretty close. I mean, honestly, I was really surprised. I did not think it was going to hit the mark that fast the first time, or at least that close to it. There were lots of things I would do differently if I was for real trying to build that app, but it gave me that smallest outcome, and I was literally able to put it in front of people the next morning when we had a class. The last one is expose. Expose it to reality fast. Get it out into the world as fast as possible. That's what I did with Fruit Market Trader. I put it out into the world the next day, and I started getting feedback. If I really wanted to test it, I would put it out in the world the next day and charge $1 for it. Because if I charged $1 for it, people signed up, and then one of two things would happen. Either they complain and ask for their money back, or they'd start using it and having fun with it, or somewhere in the middle, they maybe try it once, don't use it, but don't complain about the $1, right? Either way, that gives me some data that's actually telling me is not only is this okay, but does it meet the money model? I could use a star rating if I was putting it on a marketplace or something like that to see what it is. So vibe coding is a feeling, but it's also an action. So it's like moving ahead to the next thing. Okay, so now we get into the world I love, which is the build, measure, learn loop. I actually have a t-shirt, not today, but some of you have seen it. Vibe the loop. So vibe coding in the build, measure, learn loop becomes now part of the process, not just one part of the process, but the entire process. So you build something, you vibe code something, you measure it, you put it out into the world, and then you learn, you collect that data, and then refine it. And so you have this loop that's going continuously through. Vibe coding can be part of every step of the process. So let me give you an example. On Sunday afternoon, I sat down to work on a project that's been on my to-do list for a couple of weeks. The one startup I'm involved with, the person that was doing onboarding for since the company started, one of the co-founders, had a baby. Very exciting time. She went into the hospital. And so the gig was up. I was had procrastinated to the last minute. We needed to we had a plan for who was going to take over onboarding, but one of the things we wanted to do was give that person really, really clear input into how they were going to carry forward the onboarding process now that the main person was not in the loop. So what we had done for the last 5 months, we had recorded using Otter every single, it was actually Zoom and Otter, we recorded every single onboarding call that we had done with customers. And I dumped each one of those onboarding call transcripts into ChatGPT. And I had built a whole a trained model to not just look at what was said in those transcripts, but to compare it each time against the process flow that we had put together as the ideal way to bring a customer on, to make sure they had a great experience and that everything was working. And so we had done this for months. We had gotten all of these, we put them in. And so then I unleashed an agent. I gave it some frameworks for the type of analysis I wanted to do on that data. And I turned it loose to analyze that and create a 20-page report for the founder team, giving us an analysis on both the efficacy of our framework and how closely we were staying with that framework in the way that we were operating and opportunities to improve it. I got a 20-page document. I also created a 1.5-page executive summary for the team because I knew no one was going to read that 20-pager. But I sent it to everybody. One of the other co-founders was so inspired, he set out to vibe coding. He took that 20-page analysis of every single onboarding call that occurred over the last 4 months, and he included that in a vibe-coded app. And he created an app. The next morning at 6:30 a.m., we all got on a Zoom, and he said, I want to show you something. And he brought up an app that showed us exactly what our process looked like, and it looked like its own version of an onboarding, custom tailored onboarding app or CRM that was exactly tied to our framework. But not only the way we had been doing it, it was optimized based on the way we had analyzed the results. So we used data to train, we used an agent to analyze, and then we used the output and recommendations for that to build an app that was operational 12 hours later. So this is where vibe coding is not just for a product you want to sell. It could be for the thing that you want to do. It can help you improve your processes internally. It could just be how you kind of manage your life. One of the most popular ideas right now I hear are kind of mental health check-ins, like daily, an app that's like daily, like how you doing? Or maybe collect data, those kinds of things. I've had a number of kind of accidental entrepreneurs say, I want to create something like this. Well, you know, if someone builds one that's kind of for everybody, it'll be okay. It'll be good for sure. But imagine if you could build your own that was exactly tailored to your situation, or a fitness app that was exactly built to follow your training regimen, right? So this is like way beyond just solving problems for the world. This can be solving problems for your organization, or it can be problem solving for you. Okay, another story. A lot of you know Alexa Parker, the founder of TechTunes. Alexa was new to this university the day that she stepped into Build, Measure, Learn class, and the Build, Measure, Learn class was in its first run. It was the pilot. And the problem I was setting out to address was that increasingly every problem that's addressed has a technology element to it, and if you're not a coder, that's really hard. In fact, the Start Smaller framework, those 7 ways to start smaller, came out of this course. This course was built to be able to say, here are ways that you can start small, start cheap, test it, fail fast, and move forward. And so that was the whole point of the Build, Measure, Learn class, was to like work through this process. Whatever your business idea, start small, build something, measure the results, use data, find out what you can, analyze those results, and then make a new decision and go forward from there. And so that was the Build, Measure, Learn loop. And I will never forget the day that Alexa showed her first prototype, which was a landing page using card.co. So free landing page builder. And she had created the neck of a guitar, and on each fret there was a link to some useful resource to somebody who wants to play the guitar. And later she developed and evolved this idea through a number of different ways, but she realized what her mission was not just to make it easy and help people learn how to play the guitar. She saw a big problem in the world. Schools are getting rid of their music programs because they don't have the funds to do it. And music education is so critically important and such a passion for her that she realized, what I want to do is I want to bring music education back into schools, and that's the mission. The app, which is often described as Duolingo for learning how to play the guitar or any instrument, essentially provides tools and resources to allow schools to do this very, very inexpensively, where they can bring their music program back even if they don't have a lot of funds. Today she has a school bus and she's getting ready to drive across the country to share this app. But she decided I better learn how to code, so she took a coding class. She discovered she didn't really like to code, so she looked for other ways to do it. She started vibe coding further. She started using more tools. She ended up bringing on someone who could do some coding work, and has continued to build that app. She has now raised somewhere around $40,000 just winning pitch contests, pitch competitions. So just another example of how vibe coding went from landing page to an idea, to an app, to a movement. Something's going to have an impact on the world for years to come. All right, so one more story. Vibe coding, a boring app that pays the rent. So the current winner of the closed school co-op for a startup is Theo Young. And Theo Young actually identified a problem in the world, and he's created an app. And I'm going to call it a boring app. No insult to Theo. Theo's at the front edge of what is going to be a movement to address small little problems in very specific technical areas where AI is very, very well suited to address the problem. These are the things that AI can easily do, but nobody's gotten around to fixing the problem. And here's how Theo did it. Theo started with seeing a problem, a pain point. He got very interested in people who manage properties, people who are landlords, own properties and manage them themselves, or property management companies that hire someone to manage the property. And this app basically addresses a lot of the administrivia that comes with that job that's necessary for compliance, for organization, and all these things, but very, very tedious. And where he started was empathy. He set out to understand this user so well that he could really understand their pain and he could investigate that pain thoroughly. He started creating content, and literally he has a piece of content talking about property managers while he's getting ready. You see him tying his shoes, it's all, you don't see his face, but he's talking about this is a group of people that has a really tedious job and nobody knows really about it, nobody understands their world, and nobody cares. And so he's basically sending a message to the world that I care about this group of people and I care about their pain and their problem, and he's built a prototype to try to start to address it. I watched him over a 3-hour period. He kept bringing it over because I was working in the Biota Institute that day, and he kept showing me, check this out, check this out. In 3 hours, he went from an idea on a whiteboard to a working app where he was able to have it like manage the rent payments, handle documents, address all of the different tasks that the person needed to do with a checklist. And he did this all in Replit in a few hours. No coding experience, no coding classes, not a coder. Hasn't taken that path. He's an entrepreneur, and as a founder, he's looking at the person, their problem, their pain, and he's starting to test it. And so his next mission was he's now starting to call people or reach out to people that would fit this category. Literally, someone on the staff of the Close School was in the room when he presented this idea to a group of high school students yesterday. And she said at the end, she's like, hey, I own some properties. I want to see this, right? There was a nice little validation point. So he used vibe coding to get to where he could show just, this is the idea, we can do something with it. Okay, so let me walk through. I'm going to go rapid fire here. 7 ways to vibe faster. So this is going to look a little bit familiar to those of you who have intentionally studied entrepreneurship. But this is where vibe coding is not something you do in the process. It can be part of every step of the process. So the first is visualize, transformation of ideation. So in the past, I've always said, start with your ideation on a napkin or a whiteboard. Or if you've known me at all in the last couple of years, you know I've built a massive machine of trained data in ChatGPT and other LLMs to help me with ideation. I usually try to get the first 50 on my own, and then I use that to attach to my training data to build more ideas and to kind of refine and process those. Well, now vibe coding will let you visualize these ideas in real time. And so you're going to be able to see what they look like very soon after you've come up with the idea. I have some thoughts on that, and so this is one area where I'll say maybe don't build first, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But it's going to give you that ability to visualize, and think of this as visualizing the ideation process. So many times it's an idea in our head, now it can be something we actually do. Interrogate, and I mentioned this before, measure outcomes. You want to pressure test this. So the first thing I did when I created Fruit Market Trader was I put it in front of a bunch of people that know a lot more about gaming than I do. Because I knew they would spot the things that, you know, this is a game mechanic kind of error, or this could be better in some way. And so these were pressure tests, testing assumptions, identifying those edge cases where maybe this won't work in this scenario. Do I need to address that? Do I need to set expectations around it? Or do I need to make it clear that that's not what we do, right? So number 3, build small. And again, same as before, build doesn't start until stage 3. You can build anytime, for sure, but you know, starting to really kind of visualize what it's going to be and get to the root of the problem first will help us make sure we're building the right things. Build simple, build fast, validate with customers, and resist feature creep. So this was an interesting exercise with the startup team that I'm working with right now. In December, this was the last week of December, we were sitting in an office space on the University of Valley Forge campus. They had forgotten to turn the heat on. It was freezing. And we were whiteboarding, and we made a list of every feature that we had to have. There were 23 of them. And then we started asking the question, do we really need that feature? because we just hired a team in Serbia to build the real deal commercial app that was going to take several months, and we didn't really want to put anything new into the app, but we also wanted to be able to keep selling the current app. And so we went through that list, and the question was, do we need this to make the product work and be effective and correct? Accuracy was important. Do we need it to sell this product today? And do we need it to make it stick, to avoid attrition? If the answer to any of those questions was no, if the answer to any of those questions was yes, that meant that feature had to stay. If we could not give a clear yes to all three of those questions, that feature had to go. And that's what happened. We went from 23 to 3. So we got really, really clear on resisting feature creep. What we realized is there's a lot of features in here that would be awesome to have. We don't need them to be able to sell the product. Number 4 is choose tools widely. So match your skills to what I'm going to call the tool ladder. So if you are a coder and you have lots of experience writing code, building apps, if you are an expert, Lovable is probably not for you, right? Because unless you're going to use it just for ideation, you already have so many better tools in your toolbox to work with, it's probably not the right tool. If you are a founder who's never written a line of code and is scared to death by the idea, Lovable or Replit, great place to start. And we'll talk more about that, but match the tool with the job that you're doing. It's just like everything else. It was really interesting to watch Bo Matlock, who is an architect. He's a venture capitalist. He works with a group called United FX Ventures. He'll be here today. It was really interesting to see him working with a vibe coder who knows enough to be dangerous. Someone who knew a little bit about it, wasn't like an expert. He said, let me spend 2 hours with you showing you how to use Claude Code. And he said, I will blow your mind. And he did. After that 2 hours, that person turned around, did a 48-hour coding sprint, and cleared 4 months of backlog in 48 hours. And that was basically learning how to use Claude Code like a coder rather than the way a lot of us use it, right? So just taking on a different approach. All right, number 5, exposing it to reality. In the past, and I still, even this week, I heard people say, I want to build an app, but I'm not a coder. I need to find a technical co-founder. And that's going to be a mindset that's going to have to break soon. And it's going to start, like everybody's going to start getting it, how easy this is. I don't actually believe that the world doesn't need coders. I actually think the world needs coders now more than ever. Because once you start vibe coding something, you start to see what's possible, you start to need more, you start adding customers, they need more, you need infrastructure, you need backend, you need speed, capacity, multi-tenancy, all those things. I think we're going to need coders more now than ever before, because now, instead of a few ideas coming at all the coders that exist in the world, now millions of ideas are going to be coming out, chasing after a finite group of coders. If you are a coder in the room, you are still in the best place you can possibly be. If you are not a coder in the room, you will need them one day, but you may not need them as soon as you think. And you may be able to come up with something that will make you need them that you never thought of. So expose this thing to reality, get it out in the world, and get people testing it. There's always the reputational risk, right? You have to say, this is beta. If you've taken one of my classes, you know you can ask me, or you can ask Doc John. And you're like, what's the difference? Well, Ask Doc John is a GPT that's been preloaded with most of what I know and all my syllabi. It may give you a better answer than I do to certain questions, right? But it's essentially a chatbot that's been programmed to answer your questions, hopefully the way I would answer them. What it says today, what it will probably always say is beta. Why? Because I don't trust it yet. I haven't had any reason not to, but I also know that this is an agent operating in the world with my name on it. So I probably want to say, like, here's some qualifications. If it's 2 a.m. and you have a question, definitely ask Doc John, because I'm not going to pick up my phone. But if you get an answer from it and the answer is wrong, that's on me. So I always say, like, if it gives you a bad answer and you make a bad decision and I gave you a bad grade, which usually doesn't happen, but let's say that happened, send me the chat and I'll own the fact that my bot is not operating there. So ship it publicly, gather feedback, iterate constantly. Iteration, 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 that has not changed in the entrepreneurial process. All right, so here's just a, kind of very high level. If you're thinking about vibe coding, here's some things you think about. If you've never vibe coded before, my list got messed up. There should have been a fourth one on top here. Lovable is a great place to start. Super easy to use. It is built for those of us who have never written code before. A really, really clean user interface. Very, very easy to use. Apps have been built on it that are in the world today. So it's a really good place to start if you've never done one. I pretty quickly shifted to Replit, and I showed you why. Like, one of the reasons why is like, I think that it's not as pretty. It has some things where you have to figure it out a little bit more. You have to watch a few more YouTube videos to learn how to use it. But it does a lot more, and it's more likely to give you what you hoped you would get from it. And so a couple of others that are getting some press, I haven't tested them. I'm not endorsing them in any way. But Bolt.new and Versal.v0 are both getting a lot of hype. So they might be one, and really as kind of beginner vibe coding tools. I don't know, the V.0, that's kind of their way of saying beta. It doesn't instill a lot of confidence, but it's kind of interesting that they've owned that right out of the gate. So these are some tools. If you are a real deal coder, you've like gone to school for this, you've trained, you've learned, you know all these things, you're gonna look at these problems very differently, and you need tools that reflect your level of expertise. So things like Cursor, Windsurf, Claude Code are going to be the ones you want to use. If that is you, if you're sitting in this room, like I've spent a lot of time learning how to be a coder, Bo Moloch will be in the house today. Make sure you find him and get to know him. He was the architect at the company I worked for when I was leading product management, and we worked together on a lot of things. And to this day, we still work together. There's 2 different startups that we're involved in, and we do a lot of mentoring. But if I have a technical question, a technical problem, there is nobody in the world I would go to before him. And you're going to have access to him today, so don't miss that opportunity. Claude Code, again, this is where you start to, it's really builders are ready to scale, more control, customization. Here's what I'm hearing in the world at this point. This is every coder I talk to is that coders are using AI just like everyone else is using AI. They just use it differently than those of us who don't know it. All right, guys, let me do a rapid sell here. I won't tell you about dough.com, but if you have a physical product to sell, ask me about it later. The vibe coding's dirty little secret. Credits are the new paywall. It'll take you about 5 minutes to like all of a sudden say, you're out of credits, upgrade now. So just be aware of that. Here's the little answer to that is optimize your prompts by using an LLM to really figure out what it is you want, and then to optimize that prompt. So all those words mean something. It's a very thick, concise prompt, and you can do it. And don't forget social proof. GitHub is going to be the new LinkedIn in the world of vibe coding. So some of you are shaking your heads, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up, get there. I will tell you, I had a picture, I didn't bring it up, but my GitHub looks terrible. It has like nothing on it. If you look at Bo's, it's got like all this stuff, right? I love it when people look at my LinkedIn, they see all the things that I've kind of done in my life. If they look at my GitHub, they know you're not a coder. That is going to be a thing. So even if you're a vibe coder, you're gonna need GitHub for all these tools that we talked about. And it's the way that you get those product documentation. It's the way that you show the world what you're doing. And so here's the net. Today, vibe coders have an advantage. Next week they won't. So you better get started. So that's the decision. Tools are here, framework's proven, window is open. What will you build? And if you know me at all, you know what I'm going to say next. Keep going.